Let's pick up our reading here in verse number 7. And she said, I pray you, this is Ruth asking the servant to glean, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. She didn't take many breaks. She had some perseverance and a willingness to work about her. And then in verse number 8, let's pick up tonight. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? If thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Let's just stop right there, and I'll read a bit more as we get into that. I said it's a field of protection here, and of course the obvious one that jumps off the page, who is it that Boaz is protecting Ruth from? I just read it. Anybody know? The young men in the field. The young men in the field. But before we can get to those young men that she's protected from, I believe here that we can see that Boaz has protected her from rejection. From rejection. You remember about verse number 1, verse number 2, around about in there. Ruth says that she's going to go and she's looking for a field where she can find grace in somebody's eyes, right? She's looking for somebody that would accept her. She's telling us right there in the text that not everybody's going to let Ruth in their field. Not everybody would accept her. Not everybody was going to let her go and glean. So when Boaz tells her right there, hey, Ruth, don't go nowhere else. You stay right here in this field. He's trying to tell her, I've accepted you. We've made a place for you. You're welcome here. I've given you grace. You were looking for somebody to give you grace, and I've given you grace. Stay in this field. Stay right here. Don't go somewhere else thinking it might be better, because you might find that there's no grace in that place. It's a hard thing today, but we're in a time and place where sometimes it's hard to find anybody that's got grace. Grace on anybody. Now, me and Sue, we went over to see Miss Shelby at the hospital today, and we was in a hurry trying to get up there and see them. And I looped around that parking lot there at Tupelo Hospital, and when you drive a land yacht like I do, sometimes you just don't fit in parking spots. And I couldn't find a good one that I could fit in. We got into one of them, and we fit the truck in there, but we couldn't fit the truck with open doors, so we had to back out and move around to try somewhere else. And I looped around, and I could see a parking spot we was going to get. But when we got to the other side of it, there's somebody sitting smack dab in the middle of it, done put her in park, waiting for somebody else to back out. I didn't have patience nor grace for that individual. I told Sue, I said, they better get out of the way, I'm finna honk. I don't ever honk my horn. If I honk my horn, it's to say hello to somebody I know, or I'm plumb fighting mad. And so he said, please don't. I said, they got 30 seconds. I started counting. And I didn't give them no Mississippi seconds either. It wasn't 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It was 1, 2. Well, I'm ready. I got my hands on it. I'm finna honk, and then I'm going to point at Sue when they get mad about it. I'd already had my mind made up what I was going to do. But I didn't have no grace. I didn't have no mercy. I didn't have nothing. I needed them to get out of the way. A lot of times we don't have grace for nothing anymore, do we? We don't have grace for somebody that's made a mistake. We don't have grace for somebody that don't understand. We don't have grace for somebody that maybe has never been in that situation before. We don't have grace on somebody that's doing the best they can. They just ain't real good at it. We ain't got grace for nobody anymore. But Boaz is saying, Ruth, I'll tell you what, nobody else is going to have grace on you being a Moabite. Nobody else is going to have grace on the fact that you're coming and you're gleaning in the field. Have you ever thought about this? Boaz has got maidens in the field too, right? He said, stay here with my maidens. What do you think his maidens were doing? They were cleaning up the stuff that the reapers missed. So when he let Ruth get in his field, he was taking away from his prophets and taking away from his own maidens to make a space for her. How many folks today will take away from themselves and give to somebody else? Not very many. Not very many. We are to that point now where we don't have a whole lot of grace. But Boaz is saying, in this field of protection, I've got you a place where you can belong. I've got you a place where you're accepted and not rejected. You are protected from rejection here. And I want you to know tonight, anybody on the sound of my voice, anybody on Facebook land, anybody that's listening or might ever hear this sermon, I want you to know, if you come to Beulah Baptist Church, we're going to give you grace for whatever situation you might be in. At least the pastor is. Everybody else is acting like they're scared to say amen right there. We're going to give you grace. Amen. There we go. That's much better. I thought I was going to have to be one of those televised evangelists. You ever seen them? They want somebody to say amen and they'll go. Something like that right there. I thought I was going to have to do that or put a sign in the background that says applause now or something like that. No. Don't we all appreciate that God gave us grace? Don't we appreciate the fact that we ought to give somebody else grace every once in a while too? Because we're flesh, we're human, we make mistakes. I know sometimes I don't have a whole lot of it. I just told you that I don't have a lot of grace sometimes. But when it comes to the things of God and somebody that is hurting and somebody that needs a hand and needs some help, I want to give them grace. Y'all remember there in Mark chapter number 5? Let's see how well we know our Bibles tonight. Mark chapter number 4, Jesus tells the disciples, get in the boat, go the other side. They hit the great storm. Jesus stands up, peace be still. He says, oh, you little faith, peace be still. The storm goes away. They said, what manner of this, that even the winds and the sea obey? And they go on to the other side. You might remember what land they went to? Mark chapter number 5. They're going to find somebody there by the name of Legion. Legion. He goes by another name. The maniac of Gadara. There it is. Did y'all go look at it? I'm finna say I gave y'all where it was. This was an open book test. I thought you was going to flip over there to it. No, the maniac of Gadara. I love the story of the maniac of Gadara. I preached it one time at a church, and I knew going in they wasn't like me. I told Sue, I said, I'm going to get to preach here one time. I'm going to make the most of it while I can. And I needed an illustration, and I asked the guy on the front row, said, can I borrow you for an illustration? He slammed his Bible closed and said, well, I guess so. I'm like, okay. All right, I guess I'm not going to have a good time here. But anyways, I was preaching on the maniac of Gadara, and I was talking about oftentimes how the people bound him with fetters and chains. Y'all remember that? But then Jesus shows up, and the Bible says that he had compassion on him. He tried a different approach. You know what that compassion is? Grace. He had grace on that maniac of Gadara, and that changed the whole thing. Boaz here, he is showing Ruth grace when almost nobody else probably would show her any kind of grace. He said, I'm going to protect you from rejection. Of course, y'all already gave me my second point there. He's going to protect her from these young men. These young men here. Now, I don't think that these young men were going to attack her. I don't think that they were going to try to force her or nothing like that. But I do know young men have a tendency to pick on folks. Fair enough? Any of you men that have worked in any kind of blue-collar job or around a crew of other men, you can't make it there if you don't have thick skin, right? Because they're going to pick on you and they're going to mess with you. We got a guy right now that works with us, and he's still in engineering school, so he's not an engineer yet. He doesn't have his degree and all that stuff. He hasn't passed his test yet, so we've been ragging him pretty good about that. One of those times that I was gone on a Wednesday night, or the time that I drove down after church Wednesday night, I was at the MES, Mississippi Engineering Society meeting. They gave us a cup that said Mississippi Engineer on it. So, of course, all of us took our cup back to mess with that boy, and we said, you want to look at it? You want to look at it? You want to touch it? You know, we're just giving him a hard time. That's just, he takes it in stride, and he throws it right back at us. Don't think we're being real mean to him. But I'm just trying to say that we have a tendency to pick on one another. We have a tendency to make fun of one another. He's telling his young men, leave her alone. Don't mess with her. Don't look at her wrong. I don't want her to have to deal with that. I don't want her to have to deal with being picked on. I don't want anybody looking at her and trying to mouth at her or talking appropriately to her. I'm going to protect you from those around you in that field. That's great. Protection from rejection, protection from these young men. And then I believe there's protection there from failure as well. Boaz has already made up his mind that Ruth is not leaving this field empty. Fair? He's already made up his mind that he's going to take care of Ruth. That Ruth is not leaving this field empty. He says, don't go to anybody else's field. One, I don't know if they're going to let you in. I don't know how their crops are. But I already know in my mind that I've already instructed my folks to let you glean even among the stalks and the sheaves. Let you get right up there and there and amongst them. You ain't going to have to wait on the way back. I'm making sure that you go home with something. It's a field of protection. I want you to see, secondly tonight, it's a field of perception. All these P words. You can make an outline out of P words easy. There's a bunch of them. Perception. Boaz has perceived, he has seen, he has noticed something about Ruth here in the text, and he tells everybody else about it. Let me read. Verse number 10. Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace? There's that word grace again. Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger. Makes no sense to her. Can I tell you something? Why Jesus Christ went to die on the cross for us and gave all of us grace doesn't make sense to me either. But I sure am glad he did it. Why would you give me grace? I'm a stranger. I love verse 11. Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thy husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother, the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. You know what Boaz is saying to Ruth? He's saying, Ruth, I'm giving you grace because I already know that you gave Naomi grace. Because I already know. It's already been told. I've already heard the whole story of what you did for Naomi when she lost it all. When Naomi lost her husband and lost her boys and you lost your husband, I know how you treated Naomi. You didn't leave her. You stuck with her. You clave to her. You said, where you go, I'm going. Ain't nothing separating us. He said, because of how you treated Naomi. How you have showed us your character and who you really are. I put in my notes here, she showed that she had a heart of gold. When she showed that she had a heart like that, Boaz said, because of that, you help somebody, I'm going to help you. How about that? I've often been told or heard that you can't outgive God. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but you can't outgive God. You can't do it. I've tried it, and it's amazing. The Lord always gives me more. But I was sitting there, and we had a missionary come in at Locust Grove, and the Lord had laid on my heart. I didn't really have it with me to do it, but I did it anyways. I put a $100 bill in the plate for him to carry him back home to Wyoming with. And he got up after service. He preached. We gave him his love offering and all that. He come up to me and said, Brother Easton, I don't know why the Lord's doing this, but he's told me to give you this. Guess what he gave me? A $100 bill back. Like, God, I'm trying to give that to him. And God's like, I'm trying to give it back to you. Can't outgive God. God blesses the giver. I heard somebody, Brother Josh Adams, I believe it was, he always says that if you feel like you're not getting anything, you feel like nobody's taking care of you, nobody's loving on you, nobody's trying to give you anything, it might be because you haven't given anything first. You know, if you're going to exchange gifts from somebody, that typically means that you both have a gift to give to one another, right? I found that way, that works out that way a lot in the eyes of God. Ruth here, you don't know why you got grace in the eyes of Boaz? Because you already gave grace to Naomi. Because you already took care of somebody else, and now it's come back around, and God is giving it back on top of you, Ruth. I love it. Boaz has already perceived her heart of gold and how that she treated Naomi, how that she loved Naomi, how that she clave to Naomi and would not leave Naomi. He's perceived and noticed and seen and heard how wonderful this woman named Ruth is. He has seen the heart of gold. He has seen that she has changed from the old ways. He says here in the text, how thou hast left thy father and thy mother in the land of thy nativity. What's he saying? He's saying, Ruth, I know that you've treated Naomi well. You've given Naomi grace. You've loved on Naomi. You've been faithful to Naomi. But not only that, you've turned your back on everything that's wrong with Moab. You turned your back on the little g gods. You turned your back on the pagan heathen society out there. You turned your back on all that. You've changed from the old to get to the new. What is that Ruth said when she was going with Naomi? She said, no, I'm going with you. I'm going with you, Naomi. And your people are going to be my people, and your God, my God. Y'all remember that? She said, I'm leaving Moab. I'm leaving that place over there and everything that's in it. I'm leaving it over there, and I'm going with you into God's country. Boaz has seen that. He has seen the change. He has seen that she's not like that no more. Matter of fact, she's acting more like one of God's people all the time. And he says, because of that, I've showed you grace. Because I've seen how you are. I've seen your true colors. Not only is he seen that she's got a heart of gold and seen that she has changed from all that over there, but he has seen the choice that she made. You see, it wasn't good enough to just leave Moab. If you want to be saved by the grace of God, you can't just leave sin. You got to go somewhere too, right? You got to leave a world of sin and wickedness and go under the sun, right? Does that make sense? You got to go. Ruth, you can leave Moab all you want to. You can leave the little g gods. You can leave the heathen pagan society. You can leave all the mess that's going on out there. Brother Easton, is there mess going out there? There's a big mess going out there. You know that, what was the other sister-in-law? What was her name? Orpah. Have you ever looked into what happened to Orpah? I told you don't find her mentioned anywhere else in the Word of God. There's some history that you can find out there. This is church history, okay? I'm saying what I've read. I can't say that it's infallible. It's not the Word of God. I'm not going to tell you that. But Orpah is fixing to go buck wild, if I can put it that way. It's said that when Orpah leaves, that she goes over there and she finds her a lot of men to have a night with, lots of them. And she's going to end up being the mother to a certain individual who was of a giant stature, about 9'9". Anybody want to take a guess? Goliath. How about that? Now, who is Ruth going to end up being the great-grand or grandmother to here in just a little old while? Who's coming from the line of Ruth? David. So you got the line of Ruth, and if history holds true, you have Orpah being the mother of Goliath over here to the side, and them two lines are about to collide. How about that? Ain't that something? Like I said, I can't tell you if it's 100% accurate or not, but it sure preaches good. It sure does preach good. It's a good way to think. But anyways, you can see she could have left Moab. She could have left that sexual immoralness that there was over there with Orpah and all that crap. She can leave the little g god. She can do all that. She could have gone to live in the land of Israel. But if she did not accept God as her God, she still wasn't going to be on the right side of things. Just not doing bad is not good enough. Let me bring our local politician expert in on this. That's you. She's looking around like, who's this going to be? All right, I've often heard people say, when they don't like either candidate that's running, that I'm not going to vote at all. Or either one. I'm not going to vote at all. I don't like this one, I don't like them, I'm not voting for either one of them. And I've looked at them and said, that's not a very good way to think. And they look at me and say, why is that? I said, because for every person that does not vote, that's one less vote the wicked one needs to win. Fair? Just because you're not doing bad and not doing good and you're somewhere in the middle doesn't make you right. Matter of fact, the Lord has something to say about that in the book of Revelation. He says, I wish that you were hot or that you were cold, but since you're lukewarm, I'm going to spew you out of my mouth. Y'all are doing good tonight. Y'all are on board. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all are talking back to me, answering my questions, doing so good. Y'all about to the point where you don't even need me anymore. Okay. I love y'all. I really do. I'm glad y'all let me mess with you. It makes me have a big time up here. But no. Just because we're not doing bad doesn't mean we're automatically doing good. Just because we're not serving the devil doesn't mean we're automatically serving God. You see, there's a choice she's got to make here. She's left that, she's changed from that, but now she's making an active choice to go after God and make God her God. And Naomi's people, her people. There was a choice that was made, and he has seen that choice. There's a field of protection. There's this field of perception in what Boaz has seen about Ruth. But lastly tonight, I want you to see that this is a field of purpose. Y'all been waiting on that one, ain't you? Field of purpose. I told you I was using words that start with a P. That one's a pretty simple one to get out of here with these handfuls of purpose. It's a field of purpose here in the text. Let me get me a drink real quick. In verse 11, you have that Boaz is bragging on her for her leaving Moab and becoming more like them. But verse 12 says this, the Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. How about that? Everybody knows that Boaz is going to feed Ruth and give handfuls of purpose. But I love the fact that Boaz saw that and said, I'm praying that God blesses you and gives you a full reward for the way that you're acting. I think that'd be a real good way if we went around and spent some time just bragging on folks. Just bragging on folks. I have to be careful. A lot of times I wait until my kids do something bad and I get on to them for what they've done bad, but I don't brag on them when they do good. Anybody ever notice that? Where we're bad about falling into that and pointing out when somebody's done wrong, but they could do good 112 times before they do bad once, and we've missed the whole 112 times they did good. I don't want to be that way. Boaz has pointed out and said, I've seen how good you're doing, and I'm praying that God gives you a full reward after you've come to trust in him. Verse 13, then she said, let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaiden. Though I be not like unto one of thine handmaidens, you've treated me just like and been friendly just like I was one of yours from this nation. But I'm not, I'm a stranger, but you've treated me no different. Verse 14, and Boaz said unto her, at mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn. He handed her some parched corn. And she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. I said it's a field of purpose. What I mean by that is that everything that's about to happen to Ruth was on purpose. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't circumstance. It just didn't lay out that way. It wasn't that they had some extra on the table and said, well, there's that old Moabite gal. Maybe she wants some of this. No, everything done here by Boaz and his group is done on purpose, all with Ruth in mind. He says, Ruth, I'm going to feed you on purpose. It's a field of purpose, and he fed her on purpose. He invited her to the table. He personally extended that bread, that parched corn, right to her. He gave it to her. He didn't say, here it is if you want it. He made sure that he put himself in a servant's role to feed that. Do you see the semblance of that? We have rich, mighty Boaz here. That's what the Bible says in verse number 1 of Ruth, right? It talks about Boaz being a very wealthy man, right? We have a wealthy individual by the name of Boaz here that is taking this stranger out of the land of Moab that is pretty much a beggar at this point, that has next to nothing, and says, I'll tell you what, come to the table. And after you come to the table, I am personally going to serve you. Wow. I won't ever forget, Brother Kerry preached years ago at Locust Grove. He preached on being a servant. And he was talking about how that Jesus washed the disciples' feet. And he kept saying over and over and over again, he said, we have no business preaching. We have no business trying to do anything until we first learn how to serve those around us. I think that's great. I think that's great wisdom. Can I put it into a sense that we understand tonight? Who makes the best boss? Somebody that got hired in straight as a boss, or somebody that started at the bottom, worked their way up, and then became the boss? Option 2, right? We all want to work for the person that's been at the bottom and knows what we're actually dealing with. You know why? It's often said the best leaders were often great followers. Boaz here, he says, I'm not going to put myself way up here above you, Ruth. I'm not going to make you eat crumbs. I'm not going to make you eat leftovers. I'm going to give you a seat at the table. I'm going to serve you on purpose. And I make no bones about it. You see, Boaz, when he lowers himself to her level, he's humbled himself. Some folks would look at that almost like those Pharisees, those Sadducees looked at Jesus and said, why is he eating with sinners and publicans? Why is he doing that? That's exactly what Boaz is doing right now. He said, I'm not ashamed to get down where you are, Ruth, because I'm trying to help you. And on purpose, I want to get down there with you and next to you. Brother Doug told me when I first started preaching, and folks were asking for my phone number and stuff like that, and he said, you can't be scared of getting in the mud with the sinners to try to get them back out of it. I've never forgot that. He didn't mean to go into far country and get in the hog pen with products. He didn't mean that. But he did say sometimes you're going to have to go into a home that ain't right. Sometimes you're going to have to go into a situation that's awful. Sometimes you're going to have to get on their level to try to get down there and help them. You know what Paul said? Paul said, and I'm paraphrasing this for you. I was reading it the other day in the book of Corinthians. He said when it came to talking to the Jews, he was a Jew. When it came to talking to the Gentiles, he was a Gentile. What he's saying is whatever is going to help those people, is going to meet those people, that's how I'm going to try to carry and behave myself to reach them. There's some people that I can't preach to like this and reach them. I've preached a bunch of times down at the prison at Baden. That's a different style of preaching down there. when you get done preaching and a guy asks you to pray with him, and you get done praying, and the chaplain leans over and says, he's in here for murder. I'm like, dear God, I just had my eyes closed and his arms were around my neck. It's a little bit different atmosphere than preaching in the church. Preaching to the youth kids is a little bit different atmosphere. What I'm trying to say here is Boaz, to make a connection with Ruth, he got down with Ruth. He humbled himself to the level of a servant. Is that not what Jesus Christ did? He gave up a seat next to the Father, became flesh, humbled himself before men to go and die on the cross for us. I see grace all in this text. He fed her on purpose. Kind of done preached this a little bit. Let me just give it to you. He fellowshipped with her on purpose. He didn't just give her a plate and say, go fix it. He didn't say, go sit over there. There's you a table you can sit at. He didn't say you can just have the leftovers. He said, I want you to come and sit right here amongst us. At mealtime, come thou hither and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. He gave her a bowl of cheese dip at the Mexican restaurant. How about that? We can relate to that one, can't we? He didn't say, yeah, I'll order the cheese dip, and I'm going to spoon it out in this bowl and let you go over there by yourself. He said, come sit right here where you can reach the bowl. Come sit right here close. I want you to be a part of us. I want to fellowship with you. I want to get to know you. Can I tell you something that will make our church stick out? Oh, it'll make our church stick out so really well if we love everybody that walks through that door. I understand sometimes they walk in, they don't look like us. They don't smell like us. They don't act like us. They might not even believe like us. But I'll tell you one thing, if they'll come through that door and we'll show them the love of Jesus Christ and we'll give them some grace, we'll make a big impact on them. They might not stick here. They might go somewhere else. They might come in and they might scoff at us. I can't tell you what they're going to do. But I can tell you, everywhere you look in the Word of God, when Jesus Christ is giving grace to somebody that nobody else would give grace to, guess what happens? It sticks with them. That maniac of Gadara, he had compassion. What did he do to that woman that was caught in the very act of adultery? He had all those Pharisaical crowd. They come and they said, here she is. According to the law, we're supposed to stone her. And Jesus, he gets down, he's drawing, he's writing something in the dirt. I wonder what he wrote. You ever thought about that? I heard somebody preach one time that he was writing their names of the Pharisees, and he said, I want to make sure there ain't nobody in here. And he come up, Tyler. I don't think we got no Tylers in here. I don't want anybody thinking I'm talking about them. But he wrote Tyler, the Pharisee, in there, and he wrote down he cheated on his wife, he's a liar, he ain't tithing. He wrote down all the things they were doing wrong. I have heard it preached that way. Another good illustration. I can't tell if he's right or not, but it preaches good. But anyways, whatever he did, he wrote something in the dirt, and he looked at him and he said, you without sin cast the first stone. And after a little while, them Pharisees were like, ain't me, ain't me, ain't me. And they all cut out of there, and he looked up to that woman after he's been drawn in the dirt, and he said, what are you still doing here? Go and sin no more. You know what that's called? That's called grace. Grace. Have you ever got the picture of that woman? She's caught in the very act of adultery. This woman is wrapped up in a bed sheet, if anything, laying on the ground in front of this man, weeping and crying, thinking she's about to die. And Jesus says, grace. Grace. Get up and sin no more. On purpose. He fed her on purpose. He fellowshiped with her on purpose. And I like this one. He focused on her on purpose. You notice that? Verse 15. Let me finish verse 14. He gave her this parched corn, and she did eat and was sufficed and left. You know what that word sufficed meant? It meant she was full. He didn't kick her off the table until she was full. I sure am glad when I need something, the Lord doesn't cut me off. He lets me stay till I'm full. He focused on her. Verse 15. When she was risen up to glean, Ruth has got up from the table. She's gone back to her work. Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her. He didn't say the other handmaidens that are there drop some over there for Cindy Lou Who or whoever's on that side. Don't drop some over here for Carly Mae or whatever her name is. He didn't say none of that. He said, no, no, no. Drop some handfuls of purpose for Ruth. If Ruth is on the left, you drop on the left. If Ruth moves to the right, you drop on the right. If Ruth is in the middle, you drop in the middle. He said, on purpose. I want to focus on her on purpose. Not for anybody else, but especially for her. I sure am glad when God comes by and specifically helps me. Have you ever left the church house and thought to yourself, man, that was for me this morning? That was for me. I have preached some real bummers of messages before. Those where I've gone out the back door and I've thought to myself, dear God, I should have just said nothing and we would have been better than we were. And I've had people call me later and say, that message might not have been for anybody else, but it was for me. And the Lord's like, you thought you did bad, but I was focusing on that one. Sure, I'm glad when the Lord focuses on me. When He's touched the feeling of my infirmities. When He focuses specifically on me. When God drops something just for me. Verse number 17. So she gleaned in the field until even and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. I wanted to try to give us a visual tonight of what an ephah looked like. What an ephah looked like. For all those on Facebook, this is a paid ad by Harbor Freight. An ephah is 5.8 gallons. So imagine this gallon filled slapped to, or this bucket filled slapped to the brim and then heaped up like that. As much as you could possibly fit in this bucket. That's how much she's picked up in a day. I imagine her starting out that morning and she's getting a little bit. Here, this works out good. I love it when my kids help me with illustrations and throw crayons. She's going around and she's looking for stuff to pick up. She gets one, comes way over here. She picks up another one. Then she goes around back the other way and picks up another one and picks up another one. But then all of a sudden after that lunchtime comes around. And he's done told his men, says, hey, drop handfuls. Don't drop a little bit. Drop handfuls of purpose. And I believe they're sitting there and they're working. And they look over their shoulder and they see Ruth coming their way. They drop all that so she can get it. She works to the middle and drops all that she can get. Comes over to the left side, drops all that again. And before you know it, that bucket's starting to get heavy and she goes from holding it like this to getting down lower and lower and lower. I read that it could be anywhere from 30 to 60 pounds worth is what she was toting. Let's go 45 in the middle. Is that fair enough? 45 pounds ain't fun to tote around the whole time. But she's sitting there and she's toting her bucket full of them handfuls of purpose. She gets done with it and it's heaped up and she's walking and she has to be so careful when she sets it down so it don't run over her bucket because she's going to lose what God's blessed her with. What Boaz is focused on her with. But she's got 5.8 gallons. She's got a whole ephah. I wrote a note in my Bible last time I preached this years ago, supposedly. I don't remember preaching that message, but it's in there from somewhere, sometime. That's a bushel and a half for you folks that can think in bushels. I can't think in bushels. I think in 5-gallon buckets. That's the only way I can think. That's the same reason I can't go the metric system. I don't know how far 200 meters is, but I know 200 yards is close enough for me to shoot. I can't think in metric stuff, but I can think in standard stuff. So I can't think in bushels, but I can think in buckets. She's got a bucket full heaped over to the top. It's 45 poundish worth of this barley that she's got. And I studied on it. Anybody want to take a guess on how long that would feed somebody? Give me a guess. Somebody. Just throw one out there. 2 months. Not quite 2 months. About 10 days that it would feed one person. How about that? She went to work for 1 day and ate for 10. That's a pretty good turnaround right there. She went to work for 1 day. She suffered out there in the field. She was willing and persevered in that field of trial, that field of proving how she was going to be. She stayed there and she filled that bucket up, and it was enough to feed her for 10 days. But it gets better than that. It gets better than that. Let me take you back to the very first part of this chapter. I teased it this morning. What crop was she going to try to glean? Corn. What's she gleaning right now? Barley. Anybody want to know what time of year barley grows and is harvested? Early spring and summer. It's a winter crop, just like wheat. What time do we harvest corn? In the fall. She's got in her mind that it's going to take her months before she finds grace. She's got in her mind that it's going to take her a great long time before she finds anybody that'll show her grace, that'll love on her, that she's going to have to go and labor in that field and beg. She has relegated herself to being here in a moment of suffering and torment for so long. She said, I'm going to be here for months. All the way until we finally start to plant corn. And God looks at her and says, no, Ruth. You thought you was going to suffer a long time. You thought trying to get back, trying to get into this victorious season, you thought you was going to be in a far country a long time. You thought it was going to be hard to get back. But I'm here to tell you, it's not going to take all the way to the fall. You come right now and I'll take care of you in the spring. What time did she show up? Tail end of chapter number 1. They showed up when? At the beginning of the barley harvest. Can I put it to you this way? They showed up on a Friday, and when they went to work Monday, she had her a field to go to. She didn't have to wait long at all. She didn't have to suffer long. She didn't have to work long. She went there, and on the very first day when she's there in that field, she's already got enough for 10 days. She thought she was going to be months on down the road. God said, no, I'm going to fill your bucket up on day 1. Just when you show me that you're willing and you're going to persevere and you're going to go and you're going to start this walk back. Once you get to that point, I'm going to fill that bucket up. And I'm going to give you everything you can look for. You see, I believe a lot of times we feel like we're so far, we feel like we ain't never going to get back, we feel like it's going to take so very long to get back where we're supposed to be. But according to this text, just as soon as she shows up and starts, God says, I believe I'll focus on you right now. I sure am glad when I'm trying to get a hold of God, He doesn't make me wait. He loves on me, He cares for me, He meets me where I'm at. She probably went in that morning, and ladies, you can come on the pianos, I'm done this evening. She probably thought when she went that morning, well, let me find where I'm going to work it for the next months until the corn gets here. I was talking to a fellow the other day. I was talking about how long I got left at MDOT. I'm a 30-year guy before I retire from MDOT. If I make it to July 1, that'll be 8 years that I've completed. I'll finally be vested. And I said, wow, I'm doing good. Only 22 more years. And I feel like Ruth probably got into this field, and she probably looked at it and said, my goodness, at this rate, it's going to take me a long time. It's going to take me an awful long time of working and toiling in this field, and I'm just not going to be able to last. I'm not going to be able to make it. My goal is to just make it to the corn, just to make it a few months to see if God's going to help me. And God said, I'm not going to make you wait that long. You just get in the field and you start, and let me start focusing on you. And them handfuls of purpose are going to drop and drop and drop before you realize that you're going to pick up more in a day than you can eat in 10 days. That's the kind of God we serve. That's the wonderful, loving God that we serve. Ladies, would you start playing tonight? Let's all stand.